Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 108 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mauricio, and thanks for listening. Today, my guest will be the one and only Roger Gracie, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but let's start things off with our quote. There are two types of people who focus on their fundamentals, the very new and the very advanced. And that's from Little Tony Pasinski. Great quote. It's always good to be reminded how important the fundamentals are. And someone who knows that extremely well is my guest today, Roger Gracie. And by the way, I asked him if he preferred Roger or Roger, and he said, well, he's in Brazil. Of course, people call him Roger, but for the most part, everywhere else, and since he lives in London, he primarily goes by Roger. So Roger Gracie is a 10-time Jiu-Jitsu world champion. He's considered by many the most successful Jiu-Jitsu competitor in the history of Jiu-Jitsu competition. He's the grandson of Grandmaster Carlos Gracie and son of Master Mauricio Gomes and Reila Gracie. In this interview, we discuss a lot of things. He talks about moving from Brazil to London, his father's influence on him, awarding his first black belt, competition mindset and what makes him different, some of his most memorable matches, why he's so successful with the collar choke, his MMA career, cross-training for BJJ competition and for MMA, the biggest setback he's had in his career and how he overcame it, what he's most proud of, and his plans now that he's retired. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview. It was a great pleasure speaking with him. After the interview, make sure you stay tuned to the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And now, without further ado, let's talk to Roger. Okay, I'm speaking with 10-time Jiu-Jitsu world champion, Roger Gracie. So welcome, Roger, to the show, sir.
Thanks, Marty. It's a pleasure being here.
It's my pleasure, and I appreciate you taking time to speak with me today. So there's so much I want to ask you about, Roger, but to get us started, if you would, just take us back to growing up in Brazil. What was it like growing up in such a prestigious Jiu-Jitsu family? When did you start Jiu-Jitsu, and what eventually led you to moving to London?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting growing up as a Gracie, you know. I think you have the feeling that it's slightly different. You know, your family does not the usual things that everyone else does.
Right.
And it's like you bring a baggage of years, you know. It's like there's a tradition on your family. You know, my grandfather started, all his brothers, my cousins, my uncles. So it's like it's different. It's difficult to say because I was born into it, you know, so I don't see it from a different angle.
Sure.
You know, just the way things are. But I mean, I always loved it. It's nice to have a big family. You know, there's like everyone, like every family, up and downs. The good side of having a big family, the bad side just means that there's more fights, more people to fight. You know. But no, I'm joking.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I train, as far as I remember, I always been training. Yeah, it's like my father's not Gracie, my mom is, but he got his black belt from Halls when I was born. So it's like, I've been training with him ever since. At home, even before I'm at age to go to the academy and train, and he's already sort of teaching me. I think he's similar with my, I have a son. He's 9 now. He's almost 10. So I'm sure people will ask him in the future when you start training. And probably the first time he went to a class, he was like 3. But I mean, he was like a couple months old. I'm already putting him in the mount, trying
Yeah.
to maneuver him to a unlock, so he going to introduce really early.
It's just going to be ingrained from the start, right?
Training at that age as a baby. Yeah.
Cool.
But
You mentioned your father.
Mauricio.
Yes, Mauricio
Mauricio.
Gomes, who is certainly a jiu-jitsu icon in his own right, and I know you had to be very much influenced by him. He recently, well, back in 2017, was promoted to 8th degree red and white belt, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, he's having is great to have, so I had a massive influence from him. Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been really great having someone like your father in your corner, so to speak, from day one. What about your mother? Tell us a little bit about her.
Yeah, I mean, my mom, she played a massive part as well. She was always a massive incentivizing me to train. Put me like closer to my uncles, my cousins. So I just, because she never had a school. My father, he never taught when I was young. So I never had like a father figure that takes me to the gym to train. From the young age. I just, I went like a couple of times, no, actually quite a few times with my father to the academy, but he had like a normal job, I think when my uncle Halls died, then he used to do as a hobby, but he was to take it more serious before. But then when Halls died, he was like just doing it sporadically as a hobby sometimes.
Gotcha.
And then, my mom always pushing me to closer to my uncles, my cousins,
Nice.
so I can, get close to the family too. She always, she never really trained much, but she's been around, involved, watching everyone talking about fighting her whole life, watching fighting. So she has all the theory part really sharp.
Absolutely, and we certainly need that part, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
It's
Make us well-rounded.
Yeah, suddenly you have your mom. I leave a tournament. Then we discussed it with my cousin. Then she turns and looked at me and say, "Yeah, I think you need to train more open guard."
That's great. Oh, nice. She had a unique perspective, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So what eventually led you to moving to London, Roger?
So when I was a teenager, my father moved to England. He was in Japan teaching there for a couple months, and then he moved to England. He opened his school here. And I think when he came, I was maybe 15, something like that. And like every summer holidays from school, I used to come and stay with him my whole holidays, for like a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming every year. Then when I got my black belt, when I got my black belt, he already moved back to Brazil, to Rio. But he always kept at the school here. One of the students always kind of teaching the classes. And then when I got my black belt, I decided to come and, and take things over from where he left. I already had we didn't have our own school, but we were teaching like different places. We had instructors teaching, so I already had something on here, and it was just naturally for me just to come in and open like a full-time academy.
So what was it like making that transition? It had to be easier since you had spent some time there every year, a week here, 2 weeks here. But what was it like when you finally decided I'm going to go for it and just completely move over there? Did that really, I'd imagine it gets you out of your comfort zone quite a bit, but what was it like for you?
I mean, it was a big challenge. I just turned 21. I think it was 2021. So I was like super young. I never suddenly I have like a full business to run in alone in a country. It was really exciting. It was a big challenge. There's no downside of it. It was everything was sort of naturally. I was doing what I love. I was teaching, training. It was it was exciting times. I think I grew up really fast.
Yeah, I
Suddenly
bet.
moving to a country. Running your own school. So my kid, 21-year-old, and like teaching a full-time academy, dealing with like adults and people much older than you. It's an interesting feeling, but I think it's part of life. I embrace it with as much energy as I could, and here I am,
Right on.
17 years later.
Nice, very nice. It certainly has worked out well for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you about. So we have a mutual friend in Nick Gregoriades, who is your first black belt. What was it like awarding your first black belt? I mean, it's one thing to be, going up through the ranks yourself and focus on your own accomplishment and achievement, but it's got to be kind of different to being on that other side when you've taken somebody up and it's finally time to award them a black belt, your first person. What was that like?
Yeah, it's very interesting for you to see the progress of your students from day one. They come in fresh, white belt, they be training with you for a couple of years. They see them getting better and better. So you just feel responsible from other people. It's an interesting feeling to be a teacher, instructor.
It's got to be gratifying though to have taken someone that far, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. You have to see what they need. It's not to be a good teacher. Is not, for you to teach them what not just anything or your game. Like is try to recognize what's best for them. Try to correct their games. It's easier for you to try to transform somebody into you because you're doing what things you do in transferring to them. But everybody's different. It's impossible for that to happen.
Yeah.
No one will play the same game as you. They can do similar things, but it's like they are different. So being a teacher instructor is a quite interesting. It's very different from being a fighter.
It is, and you said something really important there. Letting them kind of be themselves. You giving them the tools and the knowledge, but not making them into kind of mini me's of you, but allowing them to kind of take it where they shine. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your competition mindset. You are undoubtedly, of course, one of the most successful, if not the most successful, jiu-jitsu competitor, in the history of jiu-jitsu competition. So, Roger, what makes you different, or is there something that makes you different to most competitors in your approach or the way you view competing?
It's difficult to say. I can say I always had like a very strong mind. I think it gets like everything else you do. It's like every aspect in life. You can not just in fighting. Anything you do, there's like competitions. Everything you want, there's hundreds of people that wants the same thing. So what makes you unique? What makes you suddenly like ahead of everybody else? So it's a mind game, because training, preparing, you get people that train more than you, prepares more than you. They physically more, they have their physical ability is better than yours. So what can make you different? It's in the end, it's a mind game. Your body, your dedication only takes you so far. What pushes about that limit, because there's a limit that everyone can get there. Everyone can train super hard and get to that limit. Everyone can be good. It's impossible for you to dedicate it to something and not be good at it. It might take longer than others, but that's a line that everybody will get. So how can you cross that line? Then it's kind of then you did the numbers, they shorten out to like a few. Then it's like just a mind game. Whoever has the strong mind, the strongest will, the stronger desire, they will succeed where others don't. And I think that aspect I can 100% say it was always in my mind. I think I believe more than my opponents, more than everybody else. I probably wanted to get further than everybody else. Suddenly it's like, I'm not compared to him, of course, it's a completely different thing. But look, I watch Usain Bolt's documentary many times, and what makes him special Look, you see his documentary when his training, his preparation, the whole process, for him till he gets to run the final. Look at his attitude, his belief. It's the mind that will get him that far ahead of everyone else. It's everybody trains as hard as him. So what makes him special is the mind. It's the same thing with fighting. Just you will get as far as where you believe you can go. And for me, there was never there was no limit what I could go. I trained to be the best ever from a young age. Before I was any good, when I was training daily in the academy as a teenager, 15, 16, 17. I was just there was hundreds of people better than me, but I always trained believing I could be the best fighter in the world. And that stayed with me forever. I never doubt myself that I could get there. It's a long process, defeat. Everybody has to deal with defeat. There's like up and downs in your career and your life. There's like everyone goes through. It's like how you deal with those challenges. That's what sets you apart from everybody else. How do you deal with defeat? Do you get depression? Do you give up? It's like I'm not good enough. For me, there was like the doubt never crossed my mind. And here I am today.
That's great. I think if you're talking about fighting, no matter what you're talking about, when you get to a certain level, the highest levels, it is all about mindset. Because like you said, there's a ton of people who practice diligently and to get better and better at their given sport or endeavor. And they will no doubtably get really good in the physical mechanics. But that mindset, when the higher you get, the more the mental game is important, right? And I think for people like yourself who've achieved such a high level, you have this resilience that when you have the defeats along the way, it doesn't crush you, it doesn't discourage you, where a lot of people, it has a bigger impact and negatively on them. But you have that resolve that, hey, these are all parts of the journey and I'm going to make it to where I want to make. Did you use any visualization or anything like that along with your mindset?
I mean, I did, just believing I was going to win. Like every time I fought, I always, it's natural for you to, before a tournament, before a fight, for you to imagine yourself fighting. Imagine yourself in the day, competing, fighting. And, how do you think? Because, when you think, when you visualizing something, it's your mind creating that image. And so what does that image tell you? Are you losing? Are you getting difficulties when you're fighting the person in your mind? I mean, every time I fought a tournament, I always knew more or less who I'm fighting. The top guys, they will always more or less get into the finals. For sure you fight them. So everybody, everyone imagine yourself fighting them. So how do you fight? How does that fight plays on your mind? Are you losing? Are you winning? You under pressure? And like for me, it's like I'm winning. Like everyone I fought, I already fought them 1,000 times in my mind, and I beat them. So when we're fighting, it's like I've been here before,
nice,
and I won.
That's
and
great.
I mean, and how much can you deal under pressure? And like people when they're under pressure, like can you deal with a big amount of pressure? It's like from every aspect. And like I was saying, fighting is linked to everything. It's like a lot of the times you fight, I was fighting, I'm getting choked out many times, I'm in the triangle, I'm about to pass out and I'm out. I'm getting choked out, it's something, you're locked under pressure, you're like in the bottom, losing like a minute to go. Do you crack? Do you doubt yourself? Those are the crucial moments that would separate people,
For sure. Coolness under pressure, and you certainly had that. You also were known for going for the finish and not, playing for points that you see kind of often these days, people trying to get the advantage or points, but you were known for really going for the finish. So any thoughts on that? And especially known for your cross collar chokes, and even though people kind of knew that was coming, they still couldn't defend it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Then is like how you see fighting, it's fighting for me is not about winning tournaments. I don't care about how many tournaments I've won, about medals and trophies. Is like, if I fight someone, like I want to be the best fighter. I don't care how many tournaments I fought, how many belts. And it's like all I care is about me and my opponent. I have to be better than them. That's a goal challenge that I set that I set to my life. And I told myself I would be the best fighter. And the only way for me to do that is winning. But if you win again, with an advantage mark or 2 points, you're not better than them. Winning by advantage does not make you better. You won the fight, it makes you win the fight, but it's too close for you to be considered better than anyone else. Like that can reverse. You can fight somebody 100 times, and it's like 2 advantage here, 2 advantage there. Is going to be there and back a lot. So
Yes.
the one way for me to set apart from my opponents is I have to win, to submit them. The only way for me to be better than the person I'm fighting is to make them submit. Then there's no doubt. There's no points. There's no advantage. It's if I top you, I'm better than you. If I don't, I'm not.
Man, I really love that. I really love that because it's so definitive. You either do it, you really show that you were better, or you don't, right? Like you said, the advantage doesn't mean anything, and it could be the opposite outcome the next day or whatever the next fight. So when you really definitively show by submitting someone, there's no question, right?
Yeah, there's no question.
You often use collar chokes or cross collar chokes, Roger. You have any tips on how to do that really well? Like this first hand is important, or any little tips that come out that might help people do better with those?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, everyone else is different. It's everybody's body will move different. It's like everything else. For you to improve your technique, for you to master something, right? Like a mount, for example, it's very hard. People they don't want to realize how hard it is for you to be really good at something. It's super hard. Like the amount of time that took me to be good at the collar choke. It's years and years of practicing, and failing, and carrying on. I could only get a efficient collar choke from the mount only after I got my black belt, and a couple years after, not before. So I've been training for years alone, and only 10 years of daily practice, every day. Suddenly my collar choke is getting better. Before that, I just couldn't. I always tried very hard, but I wasn't good enough to be able to choke people. But I've always practiced, and after years, suddenly I start to master. Then I start getting good at it. People, they just, I don't know, they think they're gonna practice something quickly, and then they're gonna master that.
Yeah, well, we as humans are attracted to the quick fix and the easy way too many times. But like you said, it always goes back to practice, right? You make it look so easy, but it wasn't easy for you to get there.
Yeah, exactly. They think, I'm going to practice a couple of times, a few techniques, and, I'm going to get it. It's very hard. It's very hard. You have to practice a lot. And they don't, in mountain and back, it's the last thing that you master in jiu-jitsu, because it's the situation that you spend the least. Like when you're training, every time you're going to train, you're going to practice where you are first. Guard. You don't top bottom. You don't start on the mount. You start in the guard. You shake hands. You're the standing. I'll take you down. I'm in your guard, or you pull guard, or you pull guard. So 90% of the times, people in the guard. Side control, but then, time over, they start again. So it's guard, then side control, because that's come off the guard, or sweep. Then you're in the mount, and then you're in the back. Like that's the last of your game. So for you have to dominate someone to pass his guard and mount, or to pass his guard and take his back. So you have to be better than that person. And most of the people you train, it's like, if you're equal, it's hard to get there. Or even if you get there sometimes, but then that's why people, they're not good at it, because they just spar, they just train. Then it's like, how do you train? You have to practice that situation. I always practice a lot. My mouth, my back, I always practice those specific situations. Anything I want to be good at it, I practice specifically that situation. I think that's why people, they don't, they're really good in guard. If you see competitors today, they have amazing guard or amazing guard pass. Great techniques. They always developing a couple things, but then somebody mount them. Suddenly if a brown belt is good in the mount, they will tap you. If he passes your guard, how many world champions? Okay, maybe not world champions, but how many high-level black belts? They don't know how to defend themselves in the side control, and then when the mount is even worse, in the back, because they never there. They don't let anyone get there, so they don't practice the escape.
So true. So true. They want to keep doing what they're really good at, right?
Yeah.
And getting even better at that. But if you don't put yourself in their weaker positions, you're never going to be good at those.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you have a ton of memorable matches in your mind. Are there ones or one or a few that stick out in your mind over your career as the most memorable match or matches, and why?
If you think, I have a few. It's, I think the first one that stays in my mind is I was a brown belt and I fought on the Brazil national team tournament, Brazilian national team.
Mm-hmm.
And I fought Damian Maia. He was already a black belt. I think he's been there for like a year, 2 years. So he was, already established black belt. And then it was me, fresh brown belt. And then, we match. And then I had to fight him. It was a super hard fight, very hard. And I started behind on points and I was able to reverse. But, that I remember, no one knew more or less who I was. Okay, I won. There was a purple, blue and purple, but I was like, still, I got my black brown belt. And I just came out of a purple belt. And suddenly, I'm fighting somebody who's, who ever since I was like blue or purple, I'm already seeing him fighting as a black belt. And then I'm like, I'm the junior here,
Right.
And then, I really went for it. It was very, there was a lot of movement in that fight, but I was behind and I was able to win. So that stays in my mind to now. I think I fought Jacare a couple times. And when I broke his arm, that one is, that one I'll never forget. And when I fought him in the ADCC, the final in 2005, that was a great match. And when I choked him from standing, and then he tapped. That was a memorable fight. That was a very good fight, actually.
Very cool.
Same thing as, I start behind on points. I try a guillotine, I pull guard. I got -1 for pulling guard, and then he escaped. And he hold that score till the end. I think it was like 1.5 or 2 minutes and a half to finish, and it was like 20 minutes fight.
Wow.
And I'm losing. And I'm like, oh my God, 2.5 minutes and I'm losing. I'm going to lose. Suddenly say, just got to keep pushing. And then, boom, I get his back.
Wow.
And then he stood up and then I choked him. It was like, oh my God.
That has to make it even sweeter that you were behind the whole time and then you pulled it out right at the last minute. That's great.
Yeah. That makes it even more special.
That's awesome. Well, Roger, your academy also offers, besides jiu-jitsu, offers judo, wrestling, kickboxing, and it looks like it's a very well-rounded academy. So did you train any judo or wrestling to supplement your jiu-jitsu? And if so, do you think all jiu-jitsu practitioners should do this?
Yes, because when I moved to London, when I was 21, I came here, opened my gym. On the beginning, I didn't have training partners. I only had my students. I had Braulio. He moved to England same time as me, but he lived 2 hours away. So, and I was still an active competitor. I was like, fighting the wars, fighting all the big tournaments. But I had no one to train. My students is like I had 1 purple belt, maybe 2 or 3 blue belts that I could train, but that's it. There was no one else. And Braulio, we used to get together maybe once a week, depending, maybe once every 2 weeks or closer to a tournament, once a week. But there was no one to train. So the way that I was able to stay physically active and like even motivated, it was training judo. There's a very good judo school here in London called Budokwai. I became good friends with Ray Stevens. He's a silver medalist in the Olympic. He was running some of the classes there. And, in training judo is very hard physically. I think is harder physically doing training judo than jiu-jitsu because it's standing. There's a lot more power involved. And I was never really good at in judo, so suddenly training with them, it was motivated me to be good at judo. Good challenge. So it's something new that's like okay, in the ground. There's like no one challenged me here. But judo, I'm getting thrown like I'm like a doll, and that helped me a lot because suddenly my judo start getting better. I'm throwing people in the tournaments, and I'm keeping motivated to train. I was going there 3 times a week, and suddenly when I'm fighting jiu-jitsu, I feel much stronger, physically, my power. So every time I was going to compete, so that played a major part in my training, the stand-up part, training judo. And I think it's essential for, jiu-jitsu fighters to train stand up. The same thing with the wrestling. When you train no-gi, it's exactly the same thing, but with no-gi. So when you train the stand-up, because it's physically, you need to spend a much bigger effort to take somebody down than if you pull guard and try to sweep. It's harder to take people down. So your physical aspect increases a lot. So you become stronger and faster. So when you're on the floor, you're stronger and faster, and your condition is better. So you're more physically conditioned to when you go on the ground. So it helps a lot. It's a big part. It always helped me. I always tell my students, do stand up. It's very good. Even though that you might if you like to play guard, it's okay. But your grips will get better. You get stronger, and eventually, if you need to take somebody down, suddenly you have the tools for it.
Nice. And it sounds like the cross training was a big part, an important part of your preparation, and that you feel like people will benefit if they do that. Even if you, say, for example, don't want to do a lot in your game, learning it will help you defend against what someone else may know, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even just to defend the takedown.
Right. Nice. You mentioned stand-up. What about the old fundamentals part of the jiu-jitsu, the stand-up part? Do you practice or teach much of that these days?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we try every class, there's always this, learning the stand-up. It's not just the ground game. I think it's very important for you to be complete. You have to know everything. Stand-up is part of jiu-jitsu. You cannot just do groundwork. Sometimes you see some jiu-jitsu players that they have no clue what a takedown is. The posture, the base, standing is like terrible because they never practice.
Right.
So it just makes them incomplete. It's
Yes.
important for you to know takedowns.
And how much do you emphasize the self-defense aspect of jiu-jitsu at your academy?
A lot is part of our program, especially on the basic curriculum.
Okay.
When on the basic class, which is the white belt class, it's we have almost every class. We have the curriculum. There's like a self-defense curriculum that is included in our daily training. Either they learn a takedown on the beginning of the class, or they learn a self-defense. So we have that as part of the curriculum.
Excellent. Let's talk a little about your MMA career, Roger. You fought in one championship, Strikeforce, and the UFC. First of all, when you were training for MMA, what striking discipline did you incorporate? Boxing, Muay Thai, or whatnot? And how did you like doing MMA?
I think it was. I start with kickboxing and Muay Thai, and then my coach passed away. Unfortunately, I had a good Muay Thai coach. He passed away, and then it took me a while to find another good coach. And then I found a really good boxing coach that helped me a lot. Ever since I started training with him. His name is Don Charles. My stand-up technique got much better, but he's a boxing coach. So for me, I always prefer hands than kicks because I just want to feel comfortable, feel comfortable understanding. And he gave me that. Was in the end I was like very comfortable on the stand-up. And I enjoy it. I don't say I regret it. It's not something that I was passionate about doing MMA. I think if I wasn't a Gracie, I wouldn't probably have done it. But I enjoyed it. It was good while it lasts, but it was never my passion. That's why I don't think I ever dedicated 100% into it. I had a good time, so I got a good run. I was happy doing it, but I was happy that I stopped.
That's great. I mean, you tried your hand in it, and you had some great fights. Was it hard for you to get hit? I know a lot of people who are like really great at, say, one thing like jiu-jitsu, but when they get into MMA, it's a whole different thing. They're not used to getting hit. Was that difficult for you, or were you okay with that?
I mean, it was okay, but in the beginning, till you're comfortable enough, I mean, you get hit, you panic. You know, your whole body, your muscles, they contract. You want to grab someone. It's like a whole body reaction when you get hit. So you get tired, quicker.
Yes.
That's the challenge of stand-up, is to stay relaxed as you're doing. You get hit, you contract everything, and it's tiring. After a couple minutes, your shoulders are burning, your hands are dropping.
Right.
Like every punch you throw is like it's a whole body workout to throw a punch. And it takes a while. It's like everything else, and it takes a lot of practice for you to be able to relax, use a proper technique. So you get hit, that there's not a big reaction body wise.
Gotcha.
Of course you defend, your body moves, but it's unless you get dizzy or you get knocked out, but it should be a small reaction. Yes. For you to be relaxed. So that it takes a long time. So in the beginning that was the biggest challenge, to feel relaxed, not just I need to grab him because otherwise I'm going to get hit,
Yeah, I'm sure that is a process. And like you said, anytime you're out of your comfort zone and you feel like there's a threat, we tend to get that adrenaline going and the fight or flight, activated. But, you said you preferred hands instead of feet, but I will say I enjoyed your fights, and I was recently went back and watched your fight with Kevin Randleman, who big fan of his. He was a great guy, great competitor. But man, you certainly delivered with a knee in that fight, right?
Yeah, I mean, I never really trained much with the knees, prior to, of course, a little bit, but not crazy. I think it was more, I wouldn't say accidental, but it's like it was a very conscious technique. I threw the knee very conscious, but when you do something, then he dropped. I wasn't expecting it. Like I thought he was dropping his head, and I was holding the back of his head, and then he was trying to move away from the clinch.
Right.
And then boom, I threw the knee and say, he dropped. I think I was more surprised than him.
Right. That's great. That's great. So Roger, what's been the biggest setback that you've had over your career, and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest setback, I can say, it was when I was fighting the final in the absolute division. I think that was the biggest setback I had in my career, because I had quite a few. When I fought my first World Championship as a black belt in 2003, I didn't fight my weight division. I wasn't feeling great, but I fought the absolute. I got to the final. I lost to Pedipano, fair and square. I got silver. And then, like the year after was the year I broke Chacare's arm. I won my division, and I felt I got robbed in the final. And I mean, okay, no big deal. It happens. A lot of people get robbed, but whatever. It's like people can say whatever they want. I feel I got robbed. I should have got that victory. Then the year after, I fight him again. Win my weight. Fight him in the open. Same thing. I'm winning the fight to the last 15 seconds. He does a beautiful takedown, which I defended. The referee gave him 2 points. Then it's like, okay, third year, final, absolute, second place. Then it's like, okay. Then the year after, I fight my weight. I win. I fight Shandy in the end. I'm winning the fight. I beat him up the whole fight. It's like 4 for me, 2 for him. The referee, the 2 points that he gave him never existed. Never mind, whatever. And then in the end, he went for a takedown, and I'm like, okay, this is my chance. I went for his back. Boom. I fell. 2 points for him. I lose the fight.
Oh, man.
10 seconds. So, and then the year next, I fight him. Same thing. I got 5 silver medals till I get my first gold. Wow. That was the biggest setback I had. It's like, okay, the first one I lost fair and square to Pedipano. No complaints. 3 points. He passed my guard. Then the year after, Jacare, I break his arm, and the referee gives him the victory. Okay, bad things happen. We live on. Next year, then like then 3 more times, like okay, this is too much, and then like after that, I won 3 more times, and
Wow.
I mean, it's I'm happy, but it's like too many setbacks.
Yeah, but again, that's what separates you. You have those setbacks, but you don't let it knock you down or
Yeah,
keep you down, and you overcome and
yeah,
prevail at the end. So
yeah. Because I mean, I can say, it's apart from it's not. I'm not happy that I lost, but I think those setbacks, it really pushed me to be really good. For like I have to tap them everyone.
hmm
So I think that made me, who I am today. It's
nice.
maybe if I wasn't for that, I don't know if I would have got where I am now, because I wouldn't be motivated enough to be like, to be better than everybody, that I have to submit everyone.
Right.
Like every year that, there was like losing in the final, I'm like, okay, this is not good enough because it's too close. Even though that, I don't agree with the referee, he had a small mistake, but still, it's the margin is too small. It's too close between me and my opponents. And I knew, I'm like, if it's too close, I have the disadvantage because the referee will always you will always give to my opponents. That was the story of my life. There was a blue belt. All the whole crowd and the referee, they was always against me for some reason. I don't know. I was always a nice guy. I was never a bad guy, swearing to everyone else. But anyway, I know when you always feel you have everybody against you, and then like for me, it's like okay, that cannot happen. Every year that was happening, I was like, okay, I have to be better. I have to train more. So when I was fighting them, it's like winning is not just enough. I have to try to tap them.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's like I have to be better than them.
So that adversity really fueled the fire of your motivation and kind of
Yeah,
shaped your path by
yeah,
motivating you so much. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So thanks for sharing about those setbacks and adversity, Roger. Let's turn that around. You've done so much and accomplished so much in your life. What are you the most proud of up until this point?
I think the most proud is to see how, how far I got. It's like it's when you go through that many challenges in your life, and it's like those extreme moments. This like, and I didn't crack. I was able to. I hold my ground and I succeed in those moments. It's like there was never a doubt in my life, in my career. It's like I'm really proud of how far I got and with the tools I've got. Like I moved to London. It's like I moved here when I was 21. I had no one to train for years and years. I had to do my own training. Of course, a lot of people helped me. I went, I was like traveling quite a couple of times. I went to New York many times to train with my cousin Hanzo. In Brazil, I have a great support from my uncle Carlos at Carlinhos, Gracie Barra, from him, from all my training partners, my uncle Helion, my father. But I feel that like I had to kind of do my own training because it was, 21. I just got my black belt. Now I'm alone in a country with no training partners. And that I've been there for forever.
Mm.
And I think on the first few years that I moved here, I always went to Brazil when the World Championship was there. I always tried to go there a couple of weeks before the tournament. So I think like the first 2 years I got there maybe 8 weeks before. So that gave me good time to catch up with the training, all my training partners. But apart from, after the first 2 years, then I just went there for maybe two weeks before the tournament. So my whole preparation I made in London.
Mm.
And with what I had and how far I got, that's what makes me really proud.
Well, I can certainly understand that for sure. What are your plans now that you're retired?
I mean, now I have, my school is growing a lot. Now I have a massive school. My association is growing. It doesn't seem much, but it's a full-time job.
Oh, I'm sure.
Suddenly it's one thing for you to run a school, with like maybe 100, 200 students. But to run a school with like a few hundred students, you have like, I have maybe I think 14 instructors. Like it's hard to manage everything. And suddenly I have association, I have like many affiliated schools. So to organize everything, and to be a, to have a business mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when you be fighting for 30 years, like, okay, it's a challenge.
Right. A whole
So it's
different
trying
world,
to
right?
transfer that. Yeah, exactly. It's trying to transfer that mentality into the business world. And like I have two kids, trying to manage everything else. It's different thing.
I'm
It's
sure.
it's a lovely challenge. I love it. I'm doing what I love.
Awesome. So you mentioned one of your kids. I think you said almost 10.
Yeah,
And
my son Tristan, he'll be 10 in June. I have a daughter, Maya. She'll be 6 in April.
nice. Awesome names too, by the way. Really cool.
Yeah.
All right, and you also have Roger Gracie TV.
Yeah, that I've been investing a lot in there. It's growing a lot. It's it's a website. Like I have almost daily techniques there. We film. Trying to develop into a really cool thing, because I think a lot of people, especially my family, they have some of them, they have the hiding thing. I can't show much. It's like I don't have that in me. It's like I love the things that I did. I kind of had to develop. So I think it's almost like a learning path. People can teach you whatever you want, but it depends on you how far you're gonna get. So it's not about what you're teaching. There's secrets.
Right.
And I think it's cool to have that. To give people access to to the things I do, to my ideas, my techniques. Lately, we just did a new feature there. The feedback has been massive. I got some of my sparring. I'm gonna add some of my fights as well, and me comment in the background what was going through my mind as I was fighting.
Yeah, I love that. I
that
love
was really
the narrated sparring. I think people get
Yeah.
so much out of watching those and hearing what you were doing, what you were thinking, as you were doing it. Really cool.
Yeah.
All right, and I'll definitely put that site in the show notes as well. So
Yeah. Thank you.
as we come to a close, Roger, anybody you want to do shout outs to or anything like that?
I mean, just every jiu-jitsu practitioner is there. It's like, I hope you guys, can get inspired, but things I did. It's jiu-jitsu is a lovely game. It's, even if you're a competitor or not. If you start getting deeper into what can brings you in your life. If you're able to transfer what you learn in the match to your daily life, that's it's a massive help that you can get. It's not just train jiu-jitsu to win tournaments. That's a small part of it. Just after you retire, that's gone. You do for a hobby. It's more if you can implement the philosophy while you're fighting, while you're training, your approach into your daily life. If you deal with challenges in the mat, if you can transfer how you deal with challenge on your daily life, how you deal with them, that's the biggest thing jiu-jitsu can give you, because it's all about dealing with pressure, dealing with challenge and problem solving. That's what jiu-jitsu is. You're fighting with someone. A lot of the times you're under pressure. I got a problem here. How do I deal with? Or I have a big problem. I'm about to get submitted. There's a huge guy on top of me smashing me. And getting out of that situation, overcoming that challenge, and suddenly you're on top, you're in a vantage position. I mean, you just did something huge. Transfer that to your daily life. Any problem you're going to have, keep a cool mind, get out of there. Now you're on top. I mean, you're a happy person,
Well said. You're a happy person. I think that's one of the best things about jiu-jitsu. Not only there's so many great things, from the people you meet and everything, but being able to apply those principles and everything off the mat as well is just such a great thing.
Yeah, it is.
Well, Roger, I really want to say thank you so much for taking the time today and sharing your knowledge, your insights, and letting us get to know you a bit better. I really appreciate it. You've impacted so many lives, and total respect for you. And thank you for your time, and I wish you a long, healthy, and happy life, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure being in the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Be well.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Really enjoyed speaking with Roger. What a very interesting person he is indeed. All right. The official launch date for the Breathing for BJJ program is May 1st. And the Breathing for BJJ program is something I've been working on for the last 2 years. It's designed to take your breathing to a higher level than you've ever had. It's designed to transform your jiu-jitsu experience through the power of the breath. And it literally takes you through specific exercises targeting your breathing muscles. It increases your functional capacity. It increases your ribcage mobility, helps you learn to use your diaphragm on a very, very effective level, and also helps you learn to regulate your breathing on the mat. So be looking for that. In the meantime, you can go to www.breathingforbjj to learn more. And time now for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment.
One of my direct subordinates, one of my guys that worked for me, he would call me up or pull me aside with some major problem, some issue that was going on, and he'd say, "Boss, we got this and that and the other thing." And I'd look at him and I'd say, "Good." And finally one day he was telling me about some issue that he was having, some problem, and he said, "I already know what you're going to say." And I said, "Well, what am I going to say?" He said, "You're going to say good." He said, "That's what you always say. When something is wrong and going bad, you always just look at me and say good." And I said, "Well, yeah. When things are going bad, there's going to be some good that's going to come from it. Didn't get the new high-speed gear we wanted? Good. Didn't get promoted? Good. More time to get better. Oh, mission got canceled? Good. We can focus on another one. Didn't get funded. Didn't get the job you wanted. Got injured. Sprained my ankle. Got tapped out? Good. Got beat? Good. You learned. Unexpected problems? Good. We have the opportunity to figure out a solution." That's it. When things are going bad, don't get all bummed out. Don't get startled. Don't get frustrated. If you can say the word good, guess what? It means you're still alive. It means you're still breathing. And if you're still breathing, well then hell, you still got some fight left in you. So get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, and go out on the attack.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you feel like you're benefiting from the show and want to show your support, you can support us on our Patreon page and a link in the show notes. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.